Satisfactory is a hugely popular game for the simple reason that it's incredibly satisfying to play. Yeah. No shit, that's why it's called Satisfactory. But despite what the average human gamer can comprehend, there's a limit to what can be done within the base game. A DLC or an add-on to the game therefore seems like a great option, but what would that even look like? More importantly, how do you ensure that the new content adds to the game that many hold in high regard without ruining it? Other games have DLCs that typically include new maps, game modes, playable characters, but what happens if you do this for Satisfactory? A DLC or a new map has been something that the community's wanted for a long time, and the community managers have actually answered questions about it before.
New planet when? Who knows?
Which is basically confirming that it's happening. Firstly, the maps and the materials on it are specifically designed to fit the goals of the game. In other words, the quantity and density of iron, for example, is set to reflect the demand for iron needed to produce the parts required for the space elevator. Adding a map would require careful consideration of how to access additional resources and how the access to these resources affect the campaign experience. This obviously depends on if the map is accessible from the base world, if it shares resources, or if it's an entirely separate experience. If the worlds are connected, then how do the developers balance the game so that accessing this new world is both useful and exciting, but doesn't unbalance the ease of access to resources? One solution could be to have different requirements for the different worlds, meaning there are objectives on one world that are separate from the objectives on the other world. However, this means that there's not a strong connection between these two worlds. One of the great aspects of the game, in my opinion, is that you can create a factory across the map from the other one. It still feels like they are connected and useful towards a central goal. By separating a DLC world from a base world, the connection the player has to the original world, and potentially all the work that was done there, is minimized. Could we then just make a DLC where you spawn on a completely new world and have no connection at all to the original map? And I think there's still issues with this as well. If they made an entirely new map, why not create an entire new game? What would be the difference between a new world and Satisfactory 2? I mean, outside of running on the same platform, the monumental task of starting the design of the world over again is probably enough to lean towards just making a new game. In addition, what I enjoy about Satisfactory is the feeling of expansion. If the DLC wasn't an expansion on the original game, but an alternative version of it, I think it would feel a lot less like an extension of the game and more like a reskin. In my opinion, the best option therefore seems to be to either add different components or objectives to the original world of Message 2 AB, or to make a world that is connectable to the world of Message 2 AB. It would be interesting to have this world be accessible at a later point in the game, say during Phase 3, and to have it be connected to the original universe. Going off of this, you could then add an alternate ending to the game if you decide to pursue the objectives on one planet instead of the other. Like maybe if you decide to expand on the other planet and you start to see that the influence of the Sommersloops and the Mercerspheres as a negative rather than a positive. I don't really know. It gives an opportunity for a story difference depending on how you play it. Regardless of this, we can see that the game as it currently stands is going in a great direction. The developers are focusing on continued improvements on systems within the game that the community identify as priorities. This continued commitment to community-centered improvement is the mark of a studio that deserves the respect and trust of their fan base. I talk more about my thoughts on the game and what else can be done on my live streams. You can follow me on Twitch at the link in the description. But what do you think about Satisfactory should do next as a DLC? Should it even be a DLC? Do you think it's a good idea? Leave your comments and thoughts below. Subscribe to see the next video where I take on a challenge from the community manager himself, and I'll see you there. Peace.